she's able to see the good in everything and to be optimistic even in the toughest of times. Welcome back. Today's video is all about how to stay feminine. That's why you're tuning in. So let's just jump right into it. If you're new to my channel, my name is Eliana. I talk all things beauty, fashion, culture, and all through the lens of faith and divine femininity. We're going to be going through two books. The first one is Sarah Jakes Roberts' Power Moves. And then the second book is Queen Afua's Sacred Woman. Both of these you're probably familiar with, and it's probably why you decided to click on this video. If you're not familiar with these books, I would highly recommend getting them. I'll put a link in the description. But it's gonna help us go through these 6 points very effectively. I received Sacred Woman by Queen Afua probably about 2 years ago, and this is basically a guide on feminine energy, healing the mind, body, and spirit. It roots itself in African tribal traditions, and it also roots us in understanding the evolution of the woman. So I love this book. I think this book is so dope, especially when we're thinking about food, diet, nutrition, healing our physical body, healing our emotional state of being. There's so much really good content in this book. So our first couple of points are actually derived from this book. Number 1, healing and nurturing. Why is this so important when it comes to maintaining our femininity? It's because it's what we're genuinely called to do at the root. So in the book, Queen Afua emphasizes the importance of women reconnecting with their innate healing nature and ability. We actually have the ability within us as women to heal all. So why aren't we using that to heal ourselves? If we've experienced trauma in our lives, if we know that we're not in a space where we're achieving everything that we want and everything that we know that we're called to be, it may be because we're not actually in a space of nurturance and healing within ourselves. We might be overextending and giving to everybody else in a very altruistic way, and then we forget about ourselves. So Queen Afua really teaches us to work from within, because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? We know that. And I think a lot of us find ourselves as women giving and giving and pouring, and then nobody's pouring back into us. Listen to this, because this is good. Strong Black woman. How often have you heard that Black women have been made strong because we need our strength to carry on? Well, don't be too quick to buy into that. Recently, they've done a lot of research on melanin and how it holds everything. It holds the good, bad, and indifferent. And the stronger your melanin, the more you will hold emotions, chemicals, toxins. When it's time to let go, other races with less melanin can release these things more easily, but our melanin holds onto all that. When things come up in your journal or in exchanges with your sister friends, you might tell yourself, I could share with my sisters and know I'll be safe. I'm not going to go through any of this, but you will feel it, and will feel it deeply. So I'm just going to say that I want you to rise as often as you're able while this is going on, between the hours of 4 and 6 a.m. That's when your intuitive energy is flowing most strongly. That's when our power is at its peak. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I will wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning just randomly, and I will notice that I have this surge of energy. I may not be super awake, but I have a surge of energy, and it makes me want to just journal. It makes me want to read. It makes me want to pray and work on my prayer life. And all of these things are callings, and we cannot negate them. We can't hide them. We can't be in a space of just pushing it to the wayside. I do have a little bit of an altruistic way of being. I don't mind giving to people and not necessarily expecting anything in return. But recently I was talking with someone, and they mentioned to me, it is okay to receive what you're giving, and it's okay to be open to it. And I would say I'm open to it, but I don't always expect it. And then sometimes I can get taken advantage of in certain ways, right? Like if I feel like I'm just called to be a giver and that is just what I genuinely enjoy doing, then that's great. But at a certain point, you do get drained and you do become weary in giving to people because you notice that they're very great at consuming and then they're not great at pouring back into you. So that is something to be mindful of when we are healing and nurturing. Make sure that it starts within ourselves. When I have a family, I want my kids to know you can't pour from an empty cup, and you have to be willing to be selfish sometimes and pour into you. That's number one, healing and nurturing for you. So number two is a little bit more focused on the spiritual connection that we are building, the relationship with God that we want to have, and nurturing and being very intentional with how we are looking at God and how we're looking at our own spiritual journey. So one thing that I would really encourage you to do to stay in your feminine is to marinate in the moment. And this is actually something that we were talking about in my book club as it relates to Power Moves by Sarah Jakes. So Sarah Jakes talks about specifically at the end of each chapter, this concept of like flipping the switch. And that just is kind of like her reflective moment after each chapter. So for the end of chapter 2, we went through last week, and there's a marinate, activate, and pray reflection. So there's these 3 categories. The marinate question for chapter 2 was, when do you feel the most powerful and when do you feel the most defeated? And I think this is a really good reflection point because, again, you know, the concept is building that relationship with God, right? Building that spiritual journey as part of ways to stay feminine. I do think when you can even just reflect on a question like, when do you feel the most powerful? Write in the comments when you feel the most powerful. I'd love to know when you feel like you really have full ownership over your life. When I was thinking about this, I thought about feeling powerful when I'm most vulnerable. Because, you know, that's my entire journey of why I'm even doing this on YouTube and sharing my life with you. It's because I want to be more open and I want to be more vulnerable, and practicing, getting comfortable in that uncomfortability. That's when you really start to develop that muscle, that emotional muscle, and you're developing that power and that strength over what you fear most. So that is something that I've been thinking through in terms of how I build my relationship, but it does kind of allow me to relax my shoulders, if that makes sense. You know, it does allow me to be more feminine because I know that somebody's looking out for me. When we're out of our feminine and in our masculine, we're probably in a space of hunting. We're probably in a space of providing. We're probably in a space of taking actionable steps and being relatively competitive. And these are all things that require a lot of discipline, and they require a lot of consistency. And those are attributes that are very good to have, but with a balance of that feminine nurturance and healing and spiritual connection with God. And just thinking through scripture, thinking through Bible studies, thinking through book clubs, and ways that we can develop that emotional spiritual muscle. So that is number 2 of how to stay feminine. So number 3 is all about sacred sexuality. And I normally don't really find myself talking too much about sexuality on my platforms and just radiating in your divine feminine as it relates to intimacy just within yourself and possibly with a partner. But I'm excited to share some of these tips with you because I do think it's bigger than that, and it's more about being in tune with your body. Recently, I noticed that when I'm on my cycle, I can't function. Like, I've tried holistic medicine, I've tried some different prescriptions. Like, it's always just very tough. And I have agreed with my body to give myself that week to just be by myself. My most important meetings are not during that week. I have a calendar hold that tells me, you know, every month during that time that I just cannot do the most. And I have accepted that, and that's fine. On the back end, what I've done is my 2 most productive weeks. That's when I can really get a lot of things done. And I could talk a little bit about cycle syncing because that's basically what this is doing. But cycle syncing is critical for us women to be able to operate in our feminine and also operate at our optimum levels. So Queen Afua talks about being in tune with your body, different pelvic floor dances. I'll try to put some pictures here, but I just want to share these with you just so you can see exactly what this is looking like in this book. This book is so cool. Like, there's so many different things. There's literally a menstrual quiz that is a part of this book where you can determine what could really be bothering you. If you're having trouble with fibroids or just womb care, or, you know, anything related to healing the feminine mind, body, and spirit, there's so much in this book. Internal cleansings, dietary support. I mean, there's so much, and it goes so far back into the origin of the woman. So I would highly recommend diving into some of these different practices, just getting in tune with your body, dancing, moving, stretching, just being very intimate and close with your body. Maybe you're, trying some of your favorite body scrubs, your favorite body butters. I'll put a link to some of the ones that I had shown in a previous video that I love to use that just make me smell good, make me feel good, make me, radiate that lightness and that energy that makes me feel really, not even just sensual, it just makes me feel very feminine and whole and soft. So the fourth tip that I want to talk a little bit about is self-discovery and self-empowerment. This was actually the first step that I talked about in terms of overcoming insecurities. And I think whenever we're trying to overcome anything, it's really important to just get in tune with the truth. And if your truth is that there are certain things that you want to improve upon yourself, there are certain things that you're not comfortable with, there are certain things that you feel could be better, you could be doing better, but you're avoiding them, that's when I want us to start getting very serious about self-discovery. You can't lie to God, right? You can't lie, and He knows your truth. If we're sitting in a place where we're not able to come to terms with exploring ourselves and exploring some of our traumas, especially our childhood traumas, we will have a tough time maintaining habits and routines that keep us feminine. The feminine woman is a woman that is able to address her wrongs, address her shortcomings, address her traumas in a way that extends grace to herself and the people around her. She's able to look at life from a very optimistic and positive lens. She's able to see the good in everything and to be optimistic even in the toughest of times. And I think that level of grace and humility is what we are called to do, number one. But number two, it requires a lot of that self-discovery and being very real with yourself. In Power Moves by Sarah Jakes Roberts, she talks about that inauthenticity piece. And I want to read that to you. It's difficult to pinpoint the moment you become complicit in denying yourself the ability to be authentic. Just know that whenever you choose to allow someone to settle on a false idea of who you are, then you are embracing an existence that is contingent on inauthenticity. No matter how subtle their misunderstanding may seem, if you allow them to make it truth, then you are accepting a role as an imposter. It's further complicated when you have been celebrated, esteemed, and acknowledged for who you pretend to be. That's when it becomes even more challenging to figure out who you truly are. So, if you're in a space where you feel like, you've just achieved certain things in life and, you've been widely accoladed for those things and you're still not fulfilled, you're still not living in your authentic truth, you're still not feeling feminine and feeling light and receiving all the things that come with femininity, whether that's feeling at peace and feeling restful, not the superficial things, just feeling peaceful and feeling like you have ownership over your body and your life and that confidence that really shines when you're in your feminine. It may be time to just really sit back and study yourself and learn more about yourself and taking accountability for where you can improve. Let's take a quick break and get into our Urban Decay PR package. I'm actually really excited to see what's in here. I've been a huge fan of Urban Decay for years. Like, I'm an OG Urban Decay girl, okay? So what we currently have, this is cute. This is actually super cute. Look how pink and your girl likes pink.
So if you're in the Northeast like me, it's just been so incredibly hot. So this new Urban Decay all-nighter long wear 16-hour setting spray is exactly what you need. It smells so amazing and refreshing.
I'm actually really excited to try this. It claims to provide bouncy skin, all-day hydration, refreshing scent. I don't know how much we talk about it on our channel, but I love a no makeup look. So if you guys would like to see how to kind of maintain just that beautified concept of how to be a feminine woman, let me know in the comments. I did share a little bit about how to look feminine in a previous video, but if you would like to see a no makeup routine that just kind of keeps me looking as natural as possible, but just enhancing my natural features, you just let me know, because I would love to do like a full makeup routine with y'all and just like chit chat. So thank you so much, Urban Decay, for sending us this new product. And if you guys would like a link to it, it'll be in the description box. The fifth concept that I think is really cool in Queen Afua's book is paying homage to the women that have come before us. We learn a lot of characteristics of life based on childhood. I think everybody kind of knows that. But if you're somebody that hasn't had the conversation with your mom in terms of her femininity and her feeling at peace and her feeling light and her feeling like she has ownership over her mind and her body and her spirit, this is probably a really good time to have that conversation. Maybe your mom isn't in your life at this time. Is there a woman that you can seek guidance and leadership from? Whether that's a friend, somebody that's in a position that you would like to be in, somebody that has femininity that you really embrace, a YouTuber that you really like. Is there somebody that you can tap in with and just really gain that knowledge? Are there things that you want to emulate? And then are there things that you want to change? Do you want to be a generational curse breaker, or do you want to continue on the journey that those women have laid the path for in your life? There's a book, and I'll put it in the description, that I gave to my mom, and it's called Mom, I Want to Hear Your Story. I want her to tell me everything, or as much as she feels comfortable sharing with me, because I want to learn and I want to grow, and I want to understand my lineage. I want to understand why I am the way that I am. I want to be able to effectively articulate that to my partner and to myself for my own internal healing. Maybe there's certain things that I don't even know why I do, but if I would know my mom's story, I would be able to harness those and change it. And I think it's also helpful for you to think about sharing your story with your daughter, your son, if you have kids, and being very intentional with the why behind it, and being vulnerable with your children with the things that, you know, are age appropriate and the things that make sense. And it all goes back to what we're called to do, having faith and knowing that God has placed it on your heart to be vulnerable. God has placed it on your heart to walk in your feminine. There's a reason why you were called to click on this video. You were being called into that higher level life of your feminine journey. Being very intentional with listening to God's word is really what's going to start changing how you walk in your divine feminine. At a certain point, you become unbreakable. You know, like at a certain point, you become unshakable. And I think a lot of our ancestral wisdom can just give us a little bit more clarity on how to heal and thrive in that space. The sixth point that I want to talk about is all about community and sisterhood. I recently have just found the best group of friends. And I think a lot of it is because I've come out of that space of feeling insecure. I've come out of that space of feeling jealous. I've come out of that space of constantly comparing myself. And I have a video where I was just talking about, you know, how to overcome those insecurities. And even in that video, I could just genuinely feel like, wow, I know what it's like to not have any of these feelings. Like, I know what it's like to be in this space of just not feeling good enough, or not feeling like you're presenting the way that you want to, and seeing so many other people presenting how you want to, and you feel like you can't harness it. So when you create that community of sisterhood, that community of women that want the same things from life that you want, the community of women that are guiding you toward a brighter tomorrow, a group of women that is so preoccupied with how to celebrate you when you win that there's no concept of jealousy or intimidation or fear or a lacking of wanting to be vulnerable, because they are on the journey with you. And it takes a lot of vulnerability and strength to be transparent with your girlfriends and say, hey, in this friendship, I think I've outgrown it. Or, hey, I'm trying to move this way in my life and be more feminine and more vulnerable and more open in my relationship and vulnerable with myself, that unfortunately, for whatever reason, I'm not receiving it from this friendship, and I'm willing to work on it. But if not, we may have to go separate ways. You want to be in a space where you can protect your energy and protect your healing journey, because you might be called to a place where your current friend group may not be. You may be called to a place where you may have to leave some people behind. And baby, you're just gonna have to get okay with that, because what God has for you is so grand that everything truly happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in bringing people along my journey and like making sure that I can pour into the people that have done so much for me. But if people are not doing things that are good for themselves, and you're trying to help them and encourage them, but they just simply can't get out of that space, it will eventually start to bring you down. So you got to have proper discernment. My girlfriends and I, we started this book club going through Sarah Jakes Roberts' book because we all were being called to that space. We all were being called to purify the mind, the body, the spirit. We were called to think through how we want to present in the world differently. We were called to healing through our traumas. We were called to being vulnerable and open. So that's the foundation of what our friendship is. You see what I'm saying? When you have that foundation, it just changes everything. It's not necessarily a trauma bond. It's more of a foundation of vulnerability and being open and being truthful and walking in your authentic self. Okay, so now Queen Afua starts to talk a little bit more about specifically how we should talk, how we should dress, how we should present. So I think you're really gonna like some of these tips. She talks about even something as small as a speaking voice. Listen to this. Your voice sings a song of life, love, peace, power, energy, and honesty. Your voice is the expression of your spirit. If your spirit is in tune, then your voice reflects the inner condition of the body temple. When you are in tune, you can pierce someone's heart with the sound of your voice. You can end a war with the texture of your voice. You can begin a healing ministry with the power of your voice. She talks about walking and just having proper posture, head straight, neck long. We talk about a lot of this in my modeling classes, but walking with a strong, straight forward stance, having confidence when you walk, sitting, shoulders down, back straight. Even thinking about the ways that you care for your hands and your nails, taking the time to pour into that feminine aspect of yourself. I always like to keep pretty much like a simple manicure. Like sometimes I get a French manicure. I need to get a fill-in soon, but I might just go back and go to dip powder just because it's a little bit easier on my nails. But she talks a little bit about the eyes and having your eyes sing a dance, expressing joy and kindness. So it's very intricate ways that we can curate femininity that do not cost anything, right? It's not an additional external product. Sometimes it's just genuinely within us how we're exuding that feminine energy. It talks about natural hair being freedom. Hair is a sensitive subject for most Black women, but I want to discuss it as part of our healing. And she kind of goes into the history of hair and just being confident and comfortable in walking in that health journey as it relates to your natural hair and how to present as your most natural self. I do think sometimes we over-index on the products and the additional external materialistic items to give us that feminine look, when sometimes it just goes down to how are we taking care of what God has already given us. So I'm not really a proponent for, always being natural or only doing this or only doing that. Like I wear braids, I have wigs, like I do the whole thing. But I do think once I got this book, it made me start to think a little bit more differently about how I looked at my hair and my skin and my nails and my overall external bodily health and then my internal bodily health. When she talks about presentation in terms of fashion, I think this is like the coolest thing ever, because you really want to think about fashion in terms of your spiritual protection. So it's kind of like your armor in terms of your spirit, but in a way that still gives you that aura of femininity. So she talks about undergarments, for example. Beautiful undergarments are as important as your outer garments. Wearing a foundation of beauty garments underneath your outer attire reminds you of your own inner beauty. As with outerwear, choose the appropriate colored undergarments to enhance your particular purpose while wearing them. For example, choose red for fire, energy, and power. Choose blue for peace, gentleness, quiet, and spiritual empowerment throughout the day. Choose green to intensify the rejuvenation of the womb. So a lot of really good tips in here. I'm a very big believer in dressing for your body type. I think, when we're looking at our body and we look at Instagram models, sometimes it doesn't align, right? Like some of us, like that's us. Some of us, it's not. So I always think about the quality of the fabric and my body type. If the quality of the fabric is trash, I'm expecting to receive trash, and I know that I probably honestly won't even be wearing it, so I don't even buy it. If I look at the quality of the product and it's quality fabric, maybe it's Black owned, it is going to be sustainable, it was made in a quality up to code factory or wherever, or if it was sourced locally, or if I have a friend that makes clothes, okay, perfect. Now that we've figured out that this is a sustainable measure of fashion, how do we transition that into making sure that it looks good on us? It's all about body type. For example, for myself, I have a little bit more of a natural, stereotypical hourglass figure. So my waist is smaller than my hips, and my shoulders are kind of in alignment with my hips. So what I like to wear is high-waisted pants or long flowing skirts. And then I like to wear more of a shortened top to kind of accentuate my waist, because my waist is going to be my focal point for all of my clothing. I'll leave a couple links to some places that I like to shop, but I do think thrifting for me has been really great to find sustainable pieces that I actually really like, that are kind of either vintage or you can't find them in too many places, or they're just kind of unique to me and I can kind of craft an outfit from there. But those are just some ways that I like to dress for my body type. There's so many different body types, and I would encourage you to kind of research yours, think through colors, think through the way that the clothes make you feel. I'm very passionate about fashion because it emotes an emotion. If you are walking out into the day and you feel very confident and empowered when you wake up, but then you just throw on something that doesn't match or doesn't go together or isn't even clean, there's stains on it, you're immediately going to lose that confidence. I can guarantee it. You're not even gonna feel like yourself at that point. So it's really important when we think about fashion and style to curate something that's unique to you, curate something that is perfect for your body shape, that looks good on you, makes you feel good, something that is representative of how God wants us to show up in the world. So for example, if you have a little bit more of a rounder frame, make sure that your clothes complement your body type. You might need more of an A-line top or an A-line dress to accentuate your waist, and then it kind of flares out. So you get more of a shape versus having more of a round shape. I also love clothing that is kind of just flowy in general, because I think that flow allows us to be in that feminine space and to really have that dance. And it's not like you have to wear, flowery, flowy stuff every day to be feminine. It's more so about allowing your body to move in that moment. So maybe when you're at your house by yourself and you have a nice robe or you have a nice nightgown and it just flows on you while you're sleeping and while you're journaling, that can be a really great way to harness that feminine energy through your clothing and through your style and through being connected to your body. So I really hope you like these tips. I hope this video was able to at least just provide a little bit more guidance on how to connect in a very pragmatic way to your feminine energy and maintain it through different rituals, through different habits. So if you liked any part of this video, go ahead and leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Love you. Bye.